Hi guys, Dustin with Florit, and today, because I was blowing so many people's minds with the fibers and when we went over the different types of fibers and how they were made, we're going to do a segment specifically on how fiber is produced and some of the advantages and disadvantages and what you might want to know for your home. So let's start actually with the dyeing process, because that's a fun one. A lot of people, I've covered this a little bit in a previous video. When you actually manufacture fiber, fiber starts in 98% of cases in a liquid form. So they take these little tiny cubes and they melt it down in these huge big steel vats, and then they of course take that and they run it through what they call an extruder. The extruder is actually kind of almost looks like a shower head. It's got a bunch of tiny little holes on it, and I'm going to get back to those holes in a minute, but what we're going to talk about right now first off is solution dyed. So most carpet in this state starts off in kind of a whitish clearish color, and then it runs through the extruder, and then there's a couple different ways that they'll actually dye the yarn. So space dyeing, they're going to spray color basically on the outside of the yarn. After it comes through the extruder, it gets twisted together into a yarn bundle, and then it gets colored. A lot of your traditional flecked carpets are space dyed so that they can create multiple flecks. They kind of look like that yarn. You've probably seen it where it's like red and then green and then blue as it keeps going. And so again, that's how a lot of your fleck carpets start off. In this case, we're actually going to talk about solution dye though. Solution dye, we're going to take little color chips and we're going to throw it into that big molten vat of liquid nylon. And then we're going to run it through the extruder. And the reason that solution dye is so unique is the color is not on the fiber, it's in the fiber. And the reasons for that that are really important is when you go to put bleach or other harsh chemicals or staining, it's hard to remove that color from inside the yarn. Literally the only way to do it would be to melt the yarn back down and make a new color. So that's why these products are so color fast and so stain resistant, literally that we can bleach them. And you'll find that in nylon, polyester, and other different fibers out there. But then other options, right? So when we go back to that nylon, and we were talking about going through that extruder, the different holes can actually be different shapes. I mentioned that. Okay, so literally get this, by changing the shape of a hole that is smaller than the human hair, we can actually change how that fiber will perform. So some of them are round. You would assume that of course they would be round, right? Just be a tiny little hole. But a lot of manufacturers use more of a star shape because they actually interlock when they create that yarn bundle. That interlocked fiber is a lot better again at that resisting of that matting and crushing. So that's kind of another little fun one. But you can imagine you take a fiber with that star-shaped pattern, it doesn't feel as soft under your hand. Of course, it's kind of sharp, so of course it feels coarse. Well, what they've also done is they keep making the fibers smaller. The denier of the yarn, they keep making smaller and smaller and smaller to the point today where I'd have to look it up to get you the exact specs, but it's quite a bit smaller than a human hair. Those individual little tiny fibers that make up each yarn bundle. And of course then from there, what's kind of fun is we can talk about loop pile and cut pile carpet. So a loop pile, you have a traditional loop format, and those are the ones that if you snag it, it runs all the way across the room. Well, the reason that they manufactured those that way is they're very resistant to matting and crushing, but the disadvantage, as we just mentioned, if you snag it, it'll run all the way across the room. Well, then they decided that they would start cutting those loops. So when the pins come through to drive that loop, there's a little knife that actually cuts each one of those loops off that creates the cut pile carpet that so many are familiar with today. The new super soft yarns, of course, all going to have that cut pile. Some patterns, like this one, has cut and loop to try to create both looks. So that one's kind of neat. There's some that are more dramatic, of course. I should have grabbed one for you, but anyway. So those are just a little fun facts on nylon versus polyester, but primarily speaking, the actual, again, manufacturing process of the fibers. So have a great day.